Hi everyone, welcome to lesson 9. So in this lesson what we're going to be doing is taking our app, which now has a Firebase database connected to it, and we're going to start writing information into it, which will be specifically related to authentication of the user or allowing a user to log in. Now the first thing that we need to do is we need to go to set this up is we need to go to the Firestore area. Okay, so this will normally look like this as a default. And what we need to do is we need to now create an area in which we can store the information. So the way that Firebase works, or databases work in general, if you're not familiar with them, is that they store things in what's referred to as collections. So what collections are is that they're basically just a collection of information. So the best way to kind of think about it, if you're still not sure, is to think about a Google Sheet that might have a sheet with lots of information. And if, let's say, we have a file which has multiple sheets in it, each one of them can be considered a collection. And within the individual sheet, you might have some information like product information, like a name and a price and whatever. And that would be one collection. So normally they're stored sort of logically together in ways that are grouped. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to create our collection, and we always want to give it a logical name. So I'm going to say user, and when I click the button, the lovely people at Flutterflow have a default user table, which I'm going to use. And so what we have here is we have a bunch of information. Now this is referred to as a schema. So basically what a schema is just what fields are in the collection. So for each field, and this hopefully should be familiar, is that each field will have a name and then a data type. So the data types are the same as the ones that are used for the app states, or the app variables. Okay, and you can have all of these different ones which you might need at times. The other thing that you can also have is you can have lists of information. Now where that's useful is in cases where you have lists of information associated with a certain thing. So for example, if you've got a team that is set up within your app, you might have the name of the team, and then the list might contain all of the users. Okay, and once you enter the name, select the data type, whether it's a list or not, the default being it's not a list, click the tick, and that becomes a new field within the database which you can use. Okay, so once that's done, the next step we need to do is we now have a place for our user information to go. We need to set up our front end to be able to do that. Now, to do this, and I've forgotten to take out from a previous attempt at making this video, so we'll do that now quickly. To do this, what we should always do when designing apps is thinking about what are the possible things that a user will do, because you can almost guarantee that at least a portion of the users will not do exactly what you expect them to do. So we need to validate that information now and prevent them from entering data to your database until you are good and ready and have all the information that's required. So to do that, what I have done, and I did this prior to the video, is we've set up a series of conditional actions. So the first condition being that the user must enter an email address. If they don't, they will just get a message saying, please give me an email address. And the same with the password, they must give you a password. And then when we're doing our confirmation of passwords, we want to make sure those passwords are equal. Okay, so if they're not equal, so if the initial password with the confirmed password fields are not identical, then they need to go and they will get a message. And obviously in the case of the password, which I didn't mention initially, is that the logic I'm using there is that if the password field is not entered into at all or not set, then you get the message. Now once you have all of that, and the user has done what you want them to do, then you can allow them to write the information that they've inputted to the database. Now to do that, we can add an action. and all the actions associated with the backend or database are under the, as the name would suggest, under the backend database area. Now there are a few different choices. And for authentication, which is different to pretty much any other backend action that you take, because normally if it was just writing to a table that was not the user table, you would normally just go to the file store area here. So you might create a document. And however, in the case of the Firebase authentication, there's a set of specific actions which make it really easy to manage user inputs. Now, in this case, we want to, because we're creating a new account, we want to create an account. So it's all very intuitive. And then what we need to do is we need to set a few things to be able to allow that to happen. Now, the thing that we need to do is that we need to tell it the type of authentication that's occurring. So in this case, it's going to be email authentication. And then we also need to tell it where the information is being gathered from the user interface. So in this case, on this user interface, we have a text field, which was the email address, and then we have the password field 1 and 2. So I'm just going to put in 1. You don't really, because I've got that logic in place for confirming whether they're the same password, I don't really need this second field, so I'm not going to use it. Next, what we need to do is that we need to, which is already a default, we need to tell it which collection we're writing that to. So because we only have the one collection, it's already put that in. However, it's obviously possible to have different types of authentication, more than one field, where it might be a case where you need to select the collection. Now, the last thing, which are all of these things are defaults, is that you'll see that this navigate automatically occurs. Okay, so what that means is that once the document is created, it will automatically go to the next page. Now, so there's no fields to set here, and the reason that is the case is because the fields have been set elsewhere. So we'll show you where. And we did come across this previously. So in our settings down the bottom, if we go up to authentication, which are already on the page, okay, you'll see that we have some settings here. So that's the initial entry page, and then we have a logged in page. So basically, the automatic navigation basically takes the information from here. So it says, right, you're going to be on your create account page. If you're successfully able to be logged in, then you're going to be on the create profile page. Okay, so that's where that information. So if you wanted to change, which you will, wanted to change which field where the automatic navigation went, then you could do that, or alternatively, you can turn it off and put in your own separate action to be able to navigate. Either or will work. All right, so once that's done, we're now ready to test our user interface. So I'm just going to give ourselves an instant reload, and we'll test it out. Okay, so now we're here. Okay, so the first thing we want to test is make sure that our logic has been set up so that we are so that the user is not allowed to proceed unless they add everything. So I'm going to click the button, and we should get a please enter an email address. Great. Now if I put in an email address, test 01, first test, and we want a Gmail address. Okay, and then I'm going to put in a password, test 01, and you'll see that if you hadn't noticed this previously, that in the widget states, which is what the components on here, the information is being filled in. Okay, now I forgot to test our yep, that's working, that you won't be able to proceed unless you enter a password. So okay, now let's make them not match. So I'm going to make them not match. And does that work? Yep. Okay, so we need to fix that up before we're allowed to proceed. Okay, so all of that works, fantastic. And then we click the sign up button and it navigates across to the next stage, which we can add some more information. Now, once that happens, we obviously want to test, the key thing that we want to test here is, did it actually write to the database? So if we come back to our area here, our user thing, we can then go into manage content. Okay, so we have it here, and I was playing around with this previously, which is why it's there. But we have test 01, and what you'll see with this user database is that it automatically creates a time in which the person created their account. It also gives you this long thing, which is a user ID. Unique user ID is automatically generated, and then there is a record ID which you can use as well as the email address. Okay, so basically that's worked. We have our authentication system now working. Okay, so the other thing that you should be doing as part of setting all of this up is, which I've already done some of, is you should be um, having your navigation all set up. Now, one thing to be aware of before I do the testing again is that when you do test data, what happens is that if you restart an instant reload, it will take you to this page rather than the sign up page that we just went through. And the reason for that is that because I'm already logged in. So I will remain logged in until such time as I log out. So what I've done is add a log out action just to this create profile temporarily so that I can do some other things, do some other testing. Now, the other things that you should be doing is you should be making sure that all your navigation is working. So if, for example, so I've already done this. So if I already have an account, I want to log in, then I can go to the other, the into the sign in page rather than create an account page. And then I should also have, if I've forgotten my password, okay, I need to be able to go on to a sign up page. And I also, if I've come to this page first and I don't have an account and I want to sign up, I want to be able to go back. So all this navigation is already set up. And then a forgot password. So what we'll do is we'll do the forgot password, and that'll be the end of the video. All right, so the forgot password, what that does is that we want the user to be able to enter their email and get a recovery password. Okay, so to do that, again, this is part of the authentication side of things. Really straightforward to set up is we need to just add an action. Okay, it is in the back end again. Okay, and it's to do with authentication, and we want to send a link to reset the email password is what we want to do. Okay, and when we do that, the only thing we need to set is where is the information for the email address coming from, and that's coming from the text field there. And once that's done, it's all set up. And so what you now have is you have an authentication, you have the user's ability to be able to get their password back. So let's do a quick test here. Well, actually, I can't do a test. My apologies. We won't be able to test this one. I can tell you now it works. But basically, what you should be doing when you do the testing, and the reason it's not going to work is because I've put a fictitious email address in, which doesn't exist, so therefore I can't go and access it. But basically, it will send you an email automatically that will have a recovery link in it, and obviously you should be testing that. All right, so that's our authentication system. It's all set up. So in the next video, what we'll be doing is taking this a step further and starting to look at gathering more information from the user. And obviously that will allow us to learn a little bit more about how to set up Firebase. All right, guys, see you in the next video. Cheers.